So Srila Prabhupada elaborates here that this knowledge is coming from through different acharyas in different philosophical systems. It's interesting that Krishna is not forcing us to worship him. Krishna is giving all these atheistic philosophies in the Vedas, and Prabhupada has mentioned the Sadharshans here, that there's Gautama, which is explaining the Nyaya philosophy of the Vedas. Nyaya, of course, we know means logic, so it's very a logical presentation of how the world is working through down to the atom. And Kanada, presenting his Vaisesika philosophy, is very similar. Atom is the ultimate source of everything. And that's very similar to the so-called philosophy atheists have today, which is very meager. That it's just circumstance, it's just chance, everything is just chance. And what they can see is the atom. So they can see, okay, here's something we can relate to. There's the atoms, and the atoms we cannot explain, but we know it's the building blocks, so that must be the source of everything. We have the building blocks, like we have this house, okay, we can see the stones and the walls, so we know this is the building blocks of this house. But we cannot see, for instance, we cannot see the foundation of the house. And the foundation of the house holding up the whole house. Without a foundation, the house will crumble and fall. So in the same way, without the real foundation of God in the equation, then it's all crumbles and falls. So they can explain it so far. But Krishna is giving this philosophy so that the atheist, they may get a little closer to him. So still they're using the Vedas, misinterpreting the Vedas, to give them the understanding of how the world is working. It's natural for all living entities, all human beings, they naturally think, where does everything come from? We want answers. We want answers on all the questions in life. Where do I come from? What is the meaning of life? We see the clear star sky, and see all the stars in the sky, and the moon and the sun, and how is this possible? Where does it come from? So we want answers. And no matter what you're doing, a complete atheist, he needs a philosophy to back up his claims, to back up his lifestyle. So this atheistic theory that everything is ultimately ending with the atoms and nothing is higher than the atoms is quite shallow. It's very shallow. It's like there's no explanation there. You just, okay, you have the building blocks of the house, but you know nothing about the foundation of the house. So after Gautama and Kanada, there is Kapila, the atheistic Kapila. We know Prabhupada made the book Kapila, the son of Devahuti. Because, and Prabhupada once, they said, you don't need that, right? Just Kapila is enough. But Prabhupada said, no, we need to distinguish from the atheist Kapila, who is simply counting, which Sangha means in one sense. It's just understanding the building blocks of nature. So you can say it's a little higher than just going for the atoms. Here we are speaking about Prakriti. And some kind of Purusha, but they have no idea that there's an ultimate Purusha. So they have all the 24 different elements in material nature, in Prakriti, but no God. And then we have Jaimini giving the Karma Mimamsa, which we heard recently in Krishna's Govardhan Lila, where Krishna was speaking, and Prabhupada says atheistic philosophy in Karma Mimamsa, meaning that Jaimini is actually saying that God might be there, but then he is subservient to the laws in nature. He's subservient to nature, or to the law of karma, you can say. So that means the Jaimini philosophy of Karma Mimamsa is that if you do your duty, then nature, or God, if he exists, have to respond to that. So really what they are after, what most people are after today, enjoyment in the heavenly planets. So that's what they think. You can go to the heavenly planets and you can come down. That's the end of life. That's how you can go continuously. There's nothing else. There's no ultimate liberation. You can go to the heavenly planets. You can enjoy it as we understand. You can go to the heavenly planets by performing pious activities, by pleasing the demigods. You can go there. But again, we hear Patanjaro Nadira Yushmat Angaraha. You have to fall down again. You cannot stay there. So they agree with that philosophy. But we know, of course, there's a step higher, going back home, back to Godhead, from which you never have to come back. Brahma Bhuvana Lokha Puna Avachinotana Mam Upecha to Kaunteya Puna Janma Nivijate. That you can go all the way up to Brahma Loka, all the way down to Patala Loka. But all are places of misery, Bhagavad Gita says. Where only repeated birth and death take place. So intelligent people, they will think, hi, there must be something like beyond just what we can see here, what you can feel and what you can understand from your mundane logic. In one sense, you can say you cannot fully prove any philosophy. There's no philosophy you can say it's 100% like this. And I'll say even our philosophy, that you cannot say this is how it is. But it's for an intelligent person, when you see again around him, you see how this body is created, right, with all the organs. And if you go again into the atoms and see how everything is there. I think it was Darwin said, I heard once, Darwin said that if they found out that the atom is much more complex than what we know it, then my theory would fall to pieces, then my theory would fall apart. So that's what they're doing in this Kannada and Nyaya, where they say the atom is everything. They say this is what we can see. And they have some knowledge, but the Darwin philosophers, they didn't have that knowledge at that time. So now that we have this knowledge, we know that the atom or the cell, we can even go to the cell of the body, is more complex than a city like New York, with all the sewer systems, all the road nets, all the roads and everything, all the houses, all the people in New York, everything, all the organizations. The cell is much more complex than that. So if you understand how complex that is, how can that just happen by chance? And this is the atheist philosophy. Everything is just happening by chance. Everything is going on by the will of no one. Or we are creating it. Again, the common mantra. We are creating it by our pious activities, and by this we can get some good rewards and we can get some punishment. So what are we missing? We have, and then we have Patanjali, the Yoga Sutras, explaining that God might exist, but you can approach him through mechanical processes. That is how you can reach God, by standing on your head. And we know it's Ashtanga, Anga. It's Ashtanga Yoga, meaning Ashta means 8 and Anga means limbs. So there's 8 limbs of the yoga system, where you start with Yama, Niyam. There's things you have to give up and the things you have to follow very strictly in your life. You have a sadhana, Yama, Niyam, and then there's asana. Then you perform the gymnastic exercises, where you make your body flexible. And the only reason why you do these exercises is, one thing is to get the life airs more in balance, but it's also just to be able to sit for a long time, because the later processes of this Ashtanga yoga process is meditation. And for that, in that process, you have to do it for 100,000 years. So that's a long sit. And you're practically sitting all the time, just meditating. So first there's asana, and then there's pratyahara. You have to give up everything else. You have to go to the mountains. You cannot bring your refrigerator or your money or your credit cards or your mobile phone. You just go without anything else. And you find whatever you need in the mountains. You find a deer skin maybe you can sit on, or some kusa grass or whatever. You sit there and you meditate. And if you have no clothes, you have no clothes. Many of us maybe saw this on YouTube. Still there's some yogis living up there in the Himalayas with no clothes, in this ice cold environment, because by the yogic powers they can maintain their bodily heat. So Pratyahara, they renounce everything and they just go away and dedicate their life for the process of self-realization. Pratyahara, and then pranayama. Then they really start balancing the life's air so that they get this equilibrium, or this becoming equipoised, being peaceful, being balanced in mind and body. And in this way they will be able to meditate. So we are meditating every day, we are chanting every day for 2 hours. So we should have the mood of a Ashtanga yogi, in the sense that we should have that sadhana where we can keep our mind focused in our meditations, in our chanting. Prabhupada actually says there's something good in all these philosophies, because they're bringing people closer to Krishna. Again, because it's the Veda, it's on the yoga ladder. So this whole yoga process is powerful, because we are bhakti yogis. And in order to fully be able to meditate, we need to have a good sadhana. We need to take care of the body. It's very difficult to be Krishna conscious if the body is not well functioning. That's why Prabhupada, all his letters he's sending, hope this meet you in good health. So health is so extremely important. If we are healthy, then we can perform our daily service for Krishna, and we can have a more peaceful mind. It's very difficult when we're deceased to have a peaceful mind, or when we're in great pain. Recently I broke my arm and it was quite painful. It can be very difficult to focus when you feel this pain constantly. So this Patanjali system is going all the way up. Now pranayama, you do all this breathing exercise, so you become equipoised and you become balanced, and then you start the meditation. So that's why the process is so long, because you have to go through all these processes, and you can only go to the next process when you reach the first one. So first is yam and niyam. You have to give all these up. That's why Bhagavad Gita says in the beginning, for a neophyte yogi, what is the means? Work is the means. Right? Then you have to work. You have to do your sadhana. But later it's just a samadhi. It's just a meditation. Then that's all they're doing. And then there's these 3 levels, as we know, of meditation. What's it called now? The first jhana? Dharana, jhana and samadhi. So there's a dharana where you can hold your meditation for so and so long, and then it's they're just becoming longer and longer, these periods. And in samadhi you're practically constantly absorbed for the yogis on the super soul. So that is, they will ultimately reach the super soul, but it will take them lifetimes of 100,000 years. So this process, all these processes are there, and we know it's even there in the Bhagavad Gita, that Krishna is telling Arjuna, you can perform this system. But then he says in the end of the chapter that it's not really practical in this age. It's not really of all yoginam abhisarvasam matgatindam atmanam shratavan bhatitema yamam sami yukta tato mataha. That he says of all the yogis, the bhakti yoga is the highest. So all these yoga processes, they are bona fide. They will ultimately lead to this high meditation, lead you to the super soul. And the super soul will naturally lead you to Krishna. When you reach the super soul, the Prabhupada says, Bhagavad Gita says, that when you win over the mind, then the super soul is already reached. So it's only the mind that keeps us away from the super soul. And in that sense, it's only the mind that keeps us away from Krishna. As the Avanta Brahmana, he realized, that is, I have only one problem. I have only one enemy in life, and that's my mind. He saw that these people were taking away my wealth. He was this very wealthy person, had lots of knowledge, money, but he was also very miserly. And he had many, many friends and very nice wife and children, but they all liked him only because of his money. So by providence, karma, he lost his money. And then he lost his wife, he lost his children, he lost all his friends. And then he actually started realizing, I'm a fool. And he went out and he was performing heavy sadhana and became fully Krishna conscious. And he came to that realization. Even these people, they left me, and these people are blaspheming, these people are urinating upon me when I'm meditating, or blaspheming when I'm meditating. but they are not my enemies. I have only one enemy, and that's my mind. So if we can conquer the mind by the process of Bhakti Yoga, which is really the only process. We hear these Ashtanga yogis, they can, but it takes them several 100,000 years. And then what they reach is the super soul realization. And that's where they stop. That's where they end. But we can, by the easy process of Krishna consciousness, by chanting 16 rounds a day and by doing a little seva to Krishna and associating with great Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, we can become Krishna conscious, go back home, back to Godhead in one lifetime. A lifetime of less than 100 years. So that is extremely powerful. Bhakti Yoga is extremely powerful. We have the tendency, I have the tendency to take it sort of like for granted, or hey, I'm not really feeling my progress, and why is it so slow, and why am I not being more Krishna conscious by following the process for some years. But when we see that, like, we've been in the material world for millions of lifetimes, going through all these philosophies, trying to convince our own minds and everybody else about saying that God does not exist, and we have all these atheist philosophies to sustain that and support that. And now all of a sudden, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and by the mercy of the devotees, we get this great gift of Krishna consciousness. And now we think, I want it now. Right? I want it in a split second, or in one lifetime even. But things take time. It's a nishthaya karya, right? It needs patience. But we've been going in all these pieces of life in all kind of ways, trying to find the solution to the problems of life. And now they're given to us on a silver plate. Brahmanda Brahmate Kona Bhagyavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasada Bhaya Bhakti Lada Bhitya. That we've been traveling Brahmanda Brahmate in all kind of species of life, in all kind of universes, looking for the absolute truth. Everyone is looking for the absolute truth. But Manushyanam Sahasrashu, very, very few finds it. Brahmanda Brahmate Kona Bhagyavan Jiva. There's Kona Bhagyavan, that's a very, very fortunate Jiva. Kona Bhagyavan Jiva, Guru Krishna Prasada Bhaya Bhakti Lata. He get the Bhakti Lata Bhitya. He get the seed of devotional service by the mercy of Guru Prasada, by the mercy of Guru and Krishna. He get this seed of devotion planted in his heart. And that seed, if we cultivate it, like here in the farm, we are cultivating so many vegetables and subjects. So if you just cultivate the seed by the water of hearing and chanting, then gradually this seed will sprout, and we'll have a Bhakti Lada Bhitya going all the way to the spiritual world, where we are connected again with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So no matter any of these philosophies, no matter what kind of lifestyle you have, if you have any intelligence, you'll create, or you're not really creating anything, but imitate some of these philosophies to justify, these atheistic philosophies, to justify the atheistic way of life. So a modern atheist, he will say there's no God, and you ask him, so where does everything come from? Oh, it's by chance, or it's from the Big Bang. But it's, of course, it's not his philosophy, it's what he's been told in school. But most people haven't really thought it through. That how can everything, as you have it in nature, how can everything come from just a Big Bang? It's a very childish philosophy, really. That there's no cause behind everything. Everything is causeless. Not really possible. But they have to make a philosophy to support it. So they say because they want to enjoy separately from Krishna, they don't want that authority, then they have to create some philosophy that support their foolish claims. That there's no God in control. Everything is just by chance. So in order to enjoy separately from Krishna, we need a philosophy to support it. So they say everything is just atoms, or it's just chance, it's just nature. Money is God. You can have money, you can buy things. That's you can say that's a perverted reflection of Candradasa and Gautama's philosophy. That is just atoms. So going further from that, it's just money, because money brings me things. It's like what we mentioned lately in Govardhan Puja, that is like you go to the fridge, a child goes to the fridge and sees there's milk there. And he says, oh, milk comes from the fridge. So that is really their philosophy. They see milk is coming from the fridge. No, milk is not coming from the fridge. No, milk is not only coming from the factory packing the milk. The milk is coming from the cow. And if you can see through that, you know where's the cow coming from. And Prabhupada says if you go further enough back, you will reach God. You will reach the conclusion of everything. Sarva karana karanam, as we just heard in the first verses of Bhagavatam. So now Sutta Goswami, he is being glorified because he has this knowledge. He has this knowledge. Even this, as Prabhupada says, you cannot sit on the Vyasasana until you know these philosophies, so that we can defeat them. And that was Prabhupada's whole purpose. He came to defeat, especially the Mayavadi philosophy, which is the last one. Often, because there's Sat darshans, right? We know Sat means 6. So there's these 6 different philosophies. But here we have 6 without Vyasadev's commentation, which is one of them. So this is normally they take Cannadas and Gautamas, meaning Gautamas Nyaya and Cannada's Vaisheshika philosophy, and put them together because they're so similar. And then the last one is Ashtavakra's Mayavadi philosophy, where they say that this is the topmost foolishness, that we are God, I am God. And now I'm temporarily under my own illusion, and my illusion is stronger than me. That's really what the Mayavadis are saying. That I'm God, God is the ultimate controller of everything, but my illusion has covered me. So the illusion Maya has covered us, because we are Anu, we are very small, but Krishna is Vibhu, he cannot become covered by anything. Except his own will, and Yoga Maya, that's a different thing. So that's the most foolish of all the philosophies, created by Shankaracharya, expansion of Lord Shiva, on the order of Krishna, to bewilder people who were unserious or just wanted to take advantage of Krishna, which we all do to some extent. That's why we are here. We want to just take advantage of Krishna. We just want to use Krishna as an order supplier. So to give up that mentality, we need to have the real philosophy. And that is what Sutta Goswami is coming with here. He's saying all these philosophies, they don't work. You are not God. You are not the controller of everything. You are very, very tiny, insignificant jiva, parts and parcels of Krishna. So what they say is vikara. Everything is just a vikaravada. It's just a transformation of an illusion of the transformation. That was actually Shankaracharya. He took it from Brahma Parinamavada, saying that that Krishna is transforming himself into the jiva and into the material world. So what they are saying, Krishna is transforming himself and giving of himself, so Krishna becomes less. Like you have 2 apples and take one, you have only one left. But that's not spiritual economics. Krishna is not becoming less because he's creating universes or because he's creating all the jivas. So that's in essence what Brahma Parinamavada. But then there's Tat Shakti Parinamavada. Meaning Krishna is transforming through his energies. This is our philosophy. That Krishna is making everything through his Shaktis. So he's making the jivas by his jiva Shakti naturally. He's making the whole material world by his Maya Shakti. And all is coming from his Achinta Shakti. Everything we have is coming from Krishna's inconceivable potencies. Parasya Shakti Vividhaiva Shrete. That Krishna has unlimited potencies. And these potencies are there partly to bewilder the jivas who wants to be bewildered, and partly to wake up the jivas who wants to be woken up. So we are in the last category. We are in the category who wants to be woken up. And if we follow this process, and this is what the sages are doing here, if we follow this process given by Sutta Goswami now to us in Bhagavatam every day, we hear from Sutta Goswami what to do if we want to get rid of all these nonsense philosophy and follow the philosophy that actually explains what is the goal of life and how to attain it. So in order to give up and to help people who are deluded by all these nonsense philosophies that just allow them to not surrender to God, not surrender to Krishna. We need to be able to defeat that philosophy. So when a person is given an argument, we should see, okay, where does it fit in? Is he a perverted reflection of karma mamangsa that you just think, oh, I can enjoy? Right? I can go to the heavenly planets. I can go to heaven, as the Christians are saying. The heaven is more like, as we have it from Bhagavatam, that's more like the Svaka Lokas, best, or Gandharva Lokas, where it's just nice to be. It's just sensual pleasure, but there's no God, no understanding of God in our sense. The Christians or any of these philosophers have no conception of Krishna. Very, very meager understanding of who is God. God is the controller, and God is the punisher or rectifier, and the creator. But they have nothing to do with Krishna's Madhurya, Krishna's sweet sides, the understanding Krishna's loving relationship with his inhabitants of Vrindavan. They have no understanding of that. They have no understanding of this Madhurya rasa of Krishna, all the 5 rasas. So that's why their philosophy is very meager. That's very shallow, because they see only a little bit of the picture. So Prabhupada is saying, or Bhagavad Gita is saying, now to Arjuna in the 7th chapter, Krishna is saying, now I'll give you both phenomenal and nominal knowledge. Now I'll give you knowledge of this material world, meaning all the way up to Brahmaloka. Right? He'll give you everything you need to know in this material universe, and I give you beyond. I give you what is there in the spiritual world. So with that philosophy, we are armed with the power, with the tools, with the weapon, with the astras, to approach Krishna, to get Krishna, to make Krishna our friend, to make Krishna our Suridang Sarvabhutanam, our well-wishing protector. Just by following this simple advice. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and as the Chatuslokas is saying, when we understand that, then naturally we want to serve Him. But if you see God as just as an atom, who wants to serve an atom? Who wants to serve an atom? People are doing it. People are serving mammon. People are serving money just to get things. Oh, then I can get this beautiful car. Or I can buy this beautiful woman, or I can buy this beautiful house, and people will worship me because I have money. This is the natural tendency. This is the perverted worship in the age of Kali. People are worshipping people who have, just because they have money, or just because they are able to sing some very nice pop songs or cinema songs, as Prabhupada would say, or they are very good at acting, or they have some fame, some little of Krishna's 6 opulences. They see just a little of that and they become so attracted. What's the thing when you see the whole thing? When you see how attractive Krishna is in all the 6 opulences, in full. So just a little of this is so attractive in the perverted reflection. People are so attracted to this, even though it doesn't really fulfill them. And everybody knows, most people just take little intelligence to look around, that money will not buy you happiness. It's a common saying, right? Everybody is saying this common saying, money will not make you happy. You can't buy yourself happiness. Because people know, but still it's all they got. Bewildered by these philosophies. Bewildered by these philosophies given by Krishna. As Krishna is saying, if they want to worship the demigods, I give them the intelligence, I give them the strata even, I give them the faith to worship that particular demigod, because that's their desire. So Krishna is waiting on we are using the free will He has mercifully given us to choose the right thing. That's why He says in Gita, all these, Arjuna, you can do this, you can do karma moksha, you can do karma yoga, you can do Ashtanga yoga, you can do these processes, but then you'll get this result. And then all the times He's doing it, see it in Bhagavad Gita, all the times Krishna is playing in this, but then it says you shouldn't, Arjuna. you should worship me. All the time, every time he explained any of these other philosophies, Krishna is going back to say, but you shouldn't do that, Arjuna. Right? And he ends the whole thing where Arjuna is standing there like, what, you told me so many things, Krishna, in Bhagavad Gita. You told me so many things. So please now tell me just one thing. And he says, Sarva Dharma Pratitya. You should give up all these religions, all these philosophies. And you should Ekya Kuravana, you should go for one point of attention. That's what you should do. Manmana Bhava Matbhaktu. Matjati Mam Namaskuru. Mameva Shashi Satyamte. Pratityani Priyusime. And if you do that, then you're my best friend. I'll take care of you, I love you. So what is the difficulty? Why are we so bewildered? Why are people so bewildered? Because we haven't given this knowledge yet. We haven't given them the real solution to life. And that's what Sutta Goswami is doing now to us in the Bhagavatam. So thank you very much. Any comments or questions?
Question and a comment. You mentioned Ashtavakra being the origin of the Mayavad philosophy, but we hear Lord Shiva was given the order to bewilder the materialists in the age of Kali.
Yeah.
So how is it Ashtavakra is the origin and Lord Shiva is the origin at the same time as Shankaracharya?
Well, Shankaracharya is giving a part of the Mayavadi philosophy, because there's so many. Again, he took this Brahma Payanamavada I mentioned. He took that and made it into the illusory, as Prabhupada is saying. Often an example is often giving, like yogurt and milk. In one sense it's the same, but in this, otherwise it's different. So that's what he's saying. That's what he made. That everything is an illusory representation. Nothing is niti, nothing is real. Everything is an illusion, and there's nothing beyond that. So the big difference there is that originally they say it as Brahma, Payanamavada, that Krishna is changing himself into this material world and creating it like that. And he says it's just the illusory representation of that. So he changed it in one sense, or made a specific part of that philosophy to bewilder the people in that category in the service of Krishna.
So Ashtavakra predates Shankaracharya?
I don't know about that, but that philosophy does. Like we hear these, they're ultimately given by Krishna through these persons, of course. So the philosophies, as I understand them, they are always there. Even these nonsense, materialistic, atheistic philosophies, they are there. Krishna is giving them. Again, so people can choose. Krishna is giving people, if they want to live without Krishna, he's giving the philosophy to support it.
The philosophy eternal, all these materialistic philosophies, they are actually eternal and they're just manifested in a certain point in time by these personalities, or... Yeah.
Of course they are not there, there are no need for them in the spiritual world. And you can say, what is eternal? This material world, is it temporary or eternal? It's temporary in the sense that it has an end, but then it starts again. So the building blocks, and that's where Kanada and Gautama is right. The building blocks are in one sense eternal. The atoms are eternal in the sense that it's Krishna's energy. It's getting very, very close to the super soul that is Brahman. So they can just be used and used and used again and again. So in that sense it's eternal, but in another sense the material world is, of course, as we know it, temporary. So these bodies, they are temporary, but the atoms will just transform into something else. When this body dies, the atoms, the cells, everything in this body will just transform into earth, and that earth will transform into something else.
Okay. So these 6 schools, Sat Darshan, are they only manifest in Kali Yuga, or are they also in previous ages, or what?
Good question. I'm not sure I know. I don't think I know. We know in Satya Yuga, everyone is Paramahamsas.
Yeah.
So But we also hear there's atheists, but not in the same planet, but in different universes. There's demons. So the right question is, I'm not sure, but I think so.
Okay.
I think they're there, but they're not so many are following them. Naturally, in Kali Yuga, everyone is following. Practically, they're not even that level where they have a philosophy. Most people in Kali Yuga, it's just again what they read in the newspapers or taught in school. It's just by chance, and that is the most people, atheist people today. They don't even have a proper philosophy. They're just foolish, really. Haven't thought it through. And that's what most people are saying. I don't really care. I don't really care where I came from. I don't really care if God exists or not. That's foolish. That's foolish. It's not. It's subhuman. That's really what makes the difference between the animals and us human beings. That we have that ability. We can think, is there something else? Who am I? What is the meaning of life? How do I become happy? Of course, everyone is looking for happiness, even the animals, but they're not in the same way as we are. And I know there's different levels of animals, and some are more than others, but not in the same level as human beings, directly planning for happiness. They're making like, okay, then I need something to eat, so they just go and find some berries or whatever, hunt a rabbit or anything. So that is their search of happiness. Or I have this urge, so they just go for sexual enjoyment. But it's often not planned. I know there's exceptions for that, but it's not planned in the same extent as human being can do. And most animals, as we know it, as Vedas are saying, they cannot understand the higher purposes. They cannot understand I'm a soul, I'm temporary. All these things they don't understand to the same extent. Maybe they're temporary, but not that they're soul, and no way to understand as a god. Prabhupada says as a fish see the moon, right? He will just see it's another fish or something he can't explain. He see the moon through the water. The fish can see the moon, but he has no understanding this is the moon. You don't know what the moon is, you just see it, maybe it's another fish, maybe it's whatever, maybe he doesn't even think it's just something. But we see the moon, and for a materialistic person, he see the moon, he see, oh, I see this every day. You see it like you see a tree. But even a tree is a miracle. A little seed mixes with some earth, mixes with some water, and it can create millions of new seed. We hear this analogy often.
That leads into my comment about, you're speaking about the qualification of living entity to understand a certain thing, how the animals can't understand. And that's also on the point of being able to prove something to others. You mentioned it wasn't possible even to prove our philosophy, if I understood it right. So it takes qualification to prove something to another person. You can't prove anything to an animal. And you mentioned most people are very foolish. They don't have any kind of philosophy. They are more or less on the animalistic platform. So if we want to prove anything to anyone, whether it's the absolute truth or it's material subject, a person has to be qualified. Like if you want to prove a mathematical equation, form, whatever, that person has to have some understanding of mathematics. Or if you want to prove within a certain subject something within that sphere, that person has to have some knowledge or qualification to understand it. So in the same way, speaking about the philosophy of the Srimad Bhagavatam, people also have to have some qualification. So we can never prove anything, even though the proof is there, if the person is not qualified. So the philosophy of Krishna consciousness is actually provable. You can prove it, but the person has to be qualified. Like even a person in the material sense may be highly intelligent, educated, whatever, but if they don't want to hear, or if they don't have the purity to hear, the sukriti, you can give all the best arguments, all the proof you want, but they won't accept it. Like we see it now in the world to get what's happening right around us. People are with the COVID jab and all that stuff, what's going on, people simply do not want to hear. Even you give them all the proof, all the highly qualified doctors speaking about these so-called vaccines, what's in them, people don't want to accept it, right? We know the concept of cognitive dissonance. People don't. They're afraid to hear it, so they're refuting it. This is not proof, right?
Yeah.
So even though you give also the proof of Krishna consciousness to someone, if people are not qualified, you cannot prove it to them. But if they are open, actually open, we can prove that philosophy, right?
Yes.
It's by the Vedas that all that knowledge is given in the Shastra. But if people are doubting, they won't be able to receive it, right? Krishna says, I forgot the verse in the Gita, but those who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain happiness, the ultimate destination, and they fall down, right? Krishna says, Mata Parataram Nanyat, there's no truth higher than me, superior to me, nothing. So actually the proofs are there, but people have to be qualified, isn't it?
Yes. As Prabhupada said, it takes a little intelligence.
Yeah.
It takes a little intelligence. And you can't, to your point, you can't wake a person pretending to sleep. So this is what people are doing, this cognitive dissonance, that people are pretending, because they don't want that authority. They want to enjoy try to enjoy separately from Krishna. And with some reason to it, because we are used with some very bad authorities. And for us, mostly authority is somebody who's telling, you're not allowed to do that, you should do that. And that's also what God is doing, Krishna is doing, but He's doing it only with our well-being in mind. And when we understand that, when we can understand that just this part of philosophy, Krishna actually loves us. He's our father, He's our mother, He's maintainer, He's everything, because He loves us so much. Yeah. So He's only taking us through this hell we are in because we want it. And immediately when we say to Krishna, I want to give it up, then Krishna is there standing, waiting, giving us this philosophy, giving us a way how to rectify ourselves or put ourselves, giving us the right philosophy. So He's giving the wrong philosophies to those who want to keep sleeping, and He's giving the right philosophy to those who want to wake up. Only unto those who have performed pious activities in this life and next life. So Krishna, how's this?
Yeah. I forgot.
But only those can take to devotional service with determination. No, that's not one. That's the other one.
Yeah.
But only unto those persons, Krishna gives that understanding. And He says to Bhakti Mama Vajanati Yavanyasjasmi Tattvata Tatomam Tattvato Gyana Visate Tadananjan. To those who just have a little bhakti, it's naturally revealed. It's only to those. This is only, so it takes bhakti to get bhakti. And that's what it means, why agyata sakriti is so extremely important, that people are performing bhakti without agyata, without knowing it. When they hear Harinam and they get some prasadam, that's really starting their spiritual life. And from there on, this little seed is there, Bhakti Lada Beach is there, and it starts growing by the watering process of taking up the process of Krishna consciousness. So what mercy? What mercy is there? We have everything we need, right? We can open this book and we can hear from Sutta Goswami, hear from Sukadeva Goswami, hear from Markandeya Rishi, Maitreya, or Uddhava and Krishna directly about this topmost philosophy. And if we become convinced, then we can convince others. So we should become very strong in understanding both our philosophy and, as we hear here, also the nonsense philosophies, in order to defeat them. But really what we really need is just this. We just need Bhagavatam, nothing else really. We just need this philosophy because it's so powerful in itself. And when you have this philosophy, you can actually defeat the others. But Prabhupada says here, in order to sit on the Vyasa, in order to give this knowledge, you should know these philosophies. But we very seldom, we don't really hear Prabhupada going into them. I can't remember a lecture where Prabhupada is really going into any of these saddarshans, the atheistic saddarshans. He's only going for Bhagavatam. And that's Prabhupada's, again, his Sakti. Right? He's translating 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and he's speaking of Bhakti, but Krishna is really speaking about what Patanjali is giving.
Well, he's sitting the ideal, right? Ideally, we should know all these philosophies in order to convince others and defeat. But of course, rarely we meet people who are kind of on that level, but ideally we should know these things. But the main thing is conviction, right? We don't have any doubts ourselves, because how can we convince anyone if we have doubt ourselves? So we have to have that qualification, and they have to have a certain qualification of actually openness and some sukriti, right?
I think we would really get a challenge if we would meet in India a real Maya.
Yeah.
They are so learned, right? Because that's their sadhana, that's what they're doing. That's just studying the scriptures. Sarvabhaumavadacharya, Lord Caitanya came and he just told me, just have to study Vedanta, just have to study Vedanta. So that's what they're doing all day. So they are very learned, but they have a foolish philosophy.
Yeah.
And what's his name? Sarvabhaumavadacharya immediately understood that. When Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he started telling him, right? Caitanya Mahaprabhu used this, I'm out of time, he used this technique of just listening to him. And then it opens his heart, it became very, I gave Sarvabhaumavadacharya said, I gave you all this knowledge, but you're not asking any questions, do you understand it, or you're just sitting there? And Caitanya Mahaprabhu understand that you're giving this interpretation, but this interpretation you're giving is just like a dark cloud really covering the real knowledge. And then he could start preaching. Then he told him, this is the essence, this is what it's all about. And Sarvabhaumavadacharya immediately turned around because of the purity of Lord Caitanya and the conviction, or the purity from the source. So that's, if we attain that purity, we can convince people. If there's no purity, very difficult, because people are so dull. Right? But everybody is attracted to the purity and to the real philosophy. I think we better stop. Thank you for your attention. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Yeah.